Look, it's time for some real talk. Guitar players don't need bass players. What do we need bass players for? It's all this low stuff, you don't really hear what they're playing anyway. Taking up space in the car. Let me give you an example. If I want to play something funky, I play something funky on the guitar, right? Oh, and then people come and might say, oh, but you need a bass line to complete the riff or something. Look, man, if I need a bass line, I just play the low E string on the guitar. Because if you go outside and you ask people, what am I playing? And then you play something on bass, people cannot hear. Anything below the low E string on the guitar, people cannot differentiate. They don't know if you're playing a G or a low E or low A on bass or whatever. They cannot tell. Not even musicians can tell. Most musicians cannot tell. So we got that covered. You got the guitar, you got the low E string. That's all you need in a band. And just look at the best bands in the world. Queen, they got Freddie Mercury, the guitar player with the curls. Then I know that drummer sings a bit. Who's the bass player of Queen? Led Zeppelin. We got Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Bonham, everyone talks about him. Who's the bass player of Queen? Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, they're kind of the same person, but then you got Charlie Watts, legend. Do they have a bass player? Do I know any bass line of Rolling Stones? Excuse me? The Red Hot Chili Peppers. Now people come and say, oh yeah, but Flea, he's one of the best bass players in the world. What does he play? He plays exactly the same whatever the guitar player plays. Like, look at Can't Stop, John Frusciante. He made that riff and Flea just copies the riff. And that's what you call bass playing. And all this craze about slap bass and stuff. Why do people love slap bass so much? Because it sounds more like a guitar than a bass. Because it's got that bing, that high thing. That's why people love slapping, because it sounds like a guitar. But then who listens to just slap bass? That's just autistic bass fanatics. So let's finish this off with some with some unbased, So subscribe if you're biased, no. Subscribe if you have no basis, no. Subscribe if you're baseless, no. Oh, and before we finish, let's look at some quotes. Some of the best musicians, like Miles Davis, said this about bass. Well, I can't find the quote now, but I remember it was in his autobiography, and I will get it now. Okay, I seem to not have it anymore, but I'm sure it was something like, he said something like, he wanted to make music where you don't hear the bass, because he had a conversation with Prince, and they both agreed that bass is best left in its place. Like when the bass just does the same thing as the kick drum does, and it just goes like boom, 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 boom. But you don't need a bass line, because bass is always out of line. There's a reason this rhymes. Bass should be in its place. Just trust me on that quote. It was something like this. It was something like this. No bass. What do we want? No bass. What do we need? No bass. What do we want? What do we need? No bass. What do we want? No bass. What do we need? No. Where's Davey 504, by the way?